Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Irish Mike's Farm Table Podcast. You can find the podcast on all the major platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. We hope you will subscribe and rate us as you enjoy the content that we work so hard to deliver. As with all episodes, this one is brought to you by Lakejoy Farmstead, our little farm northeast of Seattle, near Lakejoy in Carnation. Lakejoy Farmstead is the home of our Black Clover Cattle Company grass-fed beef, pastured pork, and poultry program, our line of barbecue rubs and bitters, as well as our farm-roasted coffee. You can find out more information about our upcoming classes, events, and so much more at lakejoyfarmstead.com. Well, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, Alex, you have been connected to me through Eric, one of your Eric Pop, who we had done an interview with here a few weeks ago, who is the director of agricultural programming or something like that, some fancy title at Carnation Farms. Yeah, he walked us through some of the history of the farm, but I'd love for you to, first of all, share a little bit of your history. What brought you to Carnation Farms? What was that path like for you?
That was a long and winding road. I am a city kid, so I grew up in the city in Canada, in British Columbia, and I discovered horses through some extended family. My aunt raised hunter jumper horses, and so we'd go visit her in the summer, and I would just be so enamored with the farm life and being outside and chasing chickens and horses. And it got to the point where my parents would leave me there in the summertime because I didn't want to go home. So they'd leave me with my crazy aunt and her crazy horses. And eventually she sent me down the street to this family that raised horses for a summer camp. And so I got in with them and started working at summer camps, teaching kids how to ride horses. And I would, every spare minute, every spring break, every winter break, I would be off to Oregon to go work on the ranch because I just could never get enough. I loved working with animals and I loved working outside. And then after I graduated high school and I didn't really have summer anymore, I had to have a real job and to support myself, I kind of ended up in the food service world.
As
and I
we
did
all
that
do.
for, yes, exactly. We've all been there.
Right.
And I did that for a long time. I went to culinary school and I worked in kitchens and I worked in coffee shops.
Oh, wow.
And then as many of us do, I also got really burnt out on that. So then I ended up having I call it my quarter life crisis. And I moved out of my house and into my van and I sold all my stuff and I just drove around for a while trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I just kept coming back to this feeling of working outside and being with animals. And it always felt like the best time in my life and this thing that I'd always been kind of trying to get back to. So I decided I was going to do a summer internship at a farm in Oregon called Converging Creek Farm, and a nonprofit called Food Wave ran that farm. And we had a little bit of livestock, some goats and chickens, but mostly it was vegetable production. And that was cool. That was great. I really liked growing vegetables. And I was like, yes, this is it. I'm outside. I've got the food part of my passion. I get to grow food that people eat. But again, I sort of I wanted that animal experience. So after my internship there, I started looking outside of Oregon for sort of more apprenticeship programs or kind of the next level after internship. And I found Carnation Farms was starting the very first year of their farmer and training program.
Yeah.
So they were looking for people, with a little bit of farming experience who kind of wanted to become farmers and wanted to take it to the next level. And they had some livestock. And I said, can I bring my dog? And they said, yes, you can. And so I came here and that was 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back to your experience in Oregon, was that a CSA or who was the where did the vegetables go? Who did they sell them to?
So we sold, they've done over the years a little bit of CSA type stuff, but mostly they went to the Saturday farmers market in Portland. We drove for over an hour to get to Portland every Saturday. And between that and our local food bank and kind of like roadside farm stand, that was like most of our product where it all went. We had several restaurant customers who would come pick up at the farmers market from us, and then would do a couple one-off deliveries here and there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So your experience with, you don't have a degree in animal, science or anything like that.
No,
this is OJT, on the job training, and
exactly. Yeah, I'm my instincts and my excitement, and I've done lots of training now through Carnation Farms. They've sent me to do a lot of trainings and webinars, and I've done like so much education in this job. And then back in my youth, I got crash courses on like horse husbandry, taking care of horses and treating injuries and managing nutrition and all of that stuff. Because they'd send me off with 20 horses to some camp, and it would just be me and the horses, and I'd be responsible for caring for them for all summer long. So I got really good at just really trusting my instincts and understanding animals and animal behavior and what these different things mean and what a sick animal looks like. Like, it doesn't really matter what species. After a certain point, you get to know like that animal's not feeling well. And sure. Then you sort of build on your knowledge. You
get to know them, they get to know you, right? There's a comfort level. Yeah. You start recognizing this is, not in their personality, or that something's off or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So okay. I come in with a lot of like practical on the ground and like strong instincts. Like, I kind of always say, like, I'm just an animal person. I just understand animals and animal psychology. And so I came in with that, and that was a great place to start. But there's a lot that I don't know, or a lot that I have learned and have to learn. And so I've really built a team of other people who have stronger academic backgrounds. And so we all sort of like have a lot to teach each other, which is really cool.
Yeah, that really is cool. So you said 8 years ago you started at Carnation Farms? Yes,
I came to Carnation Farms in 2018.
So what was 7, 8, whatever. So what was the program like when you started versus, what is it like today?
Yeah. So the farmer and training program it had its first year that year. It was the pilot year of that program. And that program went on through 2022. And so I got the opportunity to teach a lot, because after my first year, I said they didn't really have a distinct livestock program yet. We had a big flock of laying hens, and we'd done some experiments with turkeys and broilers. And I was like, hey, take a gamble on me. I'm a livestock person. You need a livestock program. I'm real cheap because, I'm very green. So take a chance on me, like make me your livestock manager, and I'll build you a livestock program. And I have lots of management experience in food service. So that aspect was like, I have strong skills in this department, and I'm smart and I'm engaged, and I can do this. And so they took a gamble on me. And from there, I built a program with a lot of poultry. It was very poultry focused for the first 3 or 4 years, like 5 years. Mostly we had 500 laying hens. We would do up to 1,000 broilers a year. I think 200 turkeys was our biggest year of turkeys. And part of my life has also been that I am a fiber artist, and I knit and spin, and I can weave, and anything fiber related, dyeing, like all of it, I'm so passionate about.
I don't think I've heard that phrase before. Fiber artist.
Oh, really?
That's a good way to say it. That covers it.
There's many of us out there. All aspects of it I love. So at a certain point I was like, hey, maybe we should get some sheep. And I kind of ran it past a bunch of people, and I was like, sheep are really great for education, because at that point we were really focused on first contact education. So having people that had never been to a farm before come out and learn about where your food comes from. And mammals are just a great way to do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wanted to jump in. I want to definitely go deeper on the sheep here in a minute, but the idea of farm education I always find interesting because um, well, maybe you can answer it. What was the intention? What was the purpose? I mean, there's certainly specific programs out there, whether it's, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, wounded horses with wounded people, I'm not saying it correctly, but there's all kinds of ways for there to be therapy. There's all kinds of, Girl Scout, Cub Scout, whatever tours. But what was kind of the purpose? Because Carnation Farms has a pretty rich history, at least in the recent past, of being an education focused farm. So what was the intention there?
So back when I first came to the farm, we were really focused on getting people connected to where their food comes from and what it looks like, in the hopes that having people be more connected to their food and to the food system would really create a desire for food that's raised sustainably and raised ethically. So kind of educating people about like, hey, this is what it can look like, but it doesn't always look like this. And this is why it's important to support your farmers, because they're the people that are like creating this food. And also how much work it takes to create this food and how much time and effort and energy and tears and blood and sweat goes into making food for people. And so, yeah. So I think it was really, the focus was really like connecting people. And, we're really close to an urban center here, right. Seattle's like 40 minutes away. So I think there was really a strong desire to connect people to like where their food comes from and have a deeper relationship with their food. Yeah, and educate people about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. And it sounds altruistic a little bit, right? Like, oh, we're just going to go out here and educate the world and make sure the big city folks know where the food comes from. But it's a really cool vision because I know our experience because we bought this farm 5 years ago, almost to the date, and there was llamas and alpacas here originally, and we shifted to beef and pigs and things like that. But it was a crash course in learning, and it was the start of the pandemic, so we weren't going anywhere. Yeah. So we just immersed ourselves in it, and a lot of stubbing our toe and those types of things. But I remember the very first time that we harvested one of our animals, and I paused for a second too. I was like, well, maybe even though this was our heart, our vision, maybe I'd rather have it wrapped in cellophane as well. That very first, without going into the details, it just was really eye-opening. I'd never go back to it again. And I almost, get a little elitist when I talk to people that do panic about what it really takes to raise an animal and all the work that goes into it, and even some of the intensity and hard decision making, that has to be made sometimes along the way. But it's a credit to places like Carnation Farms, who, there wasn't a real deep education component, to the community. And obviously, this legendary historical farm with all its, great history, is serving this really cool purpose. But back to when you're doing the chickens, correct me if I'm wrong, but during that time, weren't you also a chicken processing, center or whatever for the community as well, not just your own?
Yeah. So the first year I worked here in 2018, there was a processor nearby up at Lake Joy, I think. And she had this small chicken processing plant at her place. And she was doing processing for the community. And we brought all of our poultry there, and it was great. And we were like, oh, what a great relationship. We can support this lady, and she's doing her thing. And then in 2019, we were like, hey, we're good to go, right? And she was like, yeah, we're good to go. And then we got all of our first broilers, and we had all of our animals. We were going. And then it came out on Facebook that she was struggling with rendering. She couldn't get rendering trucks to come up to her place, and ended up needing to close down the processing plant very suddenly. And we were like,
yeah, now what do we do?
Yeah, we already had these animals. So I sort of like made some emergency plans to take the broilers that we had up to Ferndale to be processed up there. But in the meantime, you know, we're this organization that has some resources and some people who are willing to like help plug money into the community. And we said like, hey, can we buy this unit and move it here and figure out how to run it here? And so there was a lot of financial like there was a lot of stuff that happened. There was a lot of like money stuff, people stuff, logistics stuff. We had to like go through all these steps and jump through these hoops. But eventually we did get to the point where we said, okay, we've bought it. Let's bring it in. So we brought it in, we got it cleaned up. And there was a lady that was working for her there. And we said, hey, do you want to come work this unit? Like, we don't have the staff to run it. Would you like to come? Do you want a job? And she was like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So she came and she and I got in the unit and ran a few birds through, and immediately we're like, oh, this isn't going to work. Like, it's way too labor intensive. It was set up to run like maybe 20, 30 chickens in a day. And we just have to be able to do more than that. So we pulled everything out. I went online and researched a bunch of equipment. I found some pieces of equipment that would sort of increase our capacity. We built an addition onto the unit, and it was basically down for 6 months. And then we got all the equipment finally got fabricated and sent out here. It was a whole thing. And then we got it out, set it up, started running it, and it worked, and it was amazing. So once we had our animals run through as sort of like the experiment phase, and we got all the bags and labels and everything, we sort of quietly opened up to the community and said like, hey, we're here. If you need chickens processed, we're here. And it was just like an absolute like tidal wave, like a deluge of people needing poultry processed. And
this was what year again?
That was in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had it running for 4 years. And ultimately what happened in 2022, the farm had some pretty big personnel changes. A few like big key players left to go do other things. And that sort of created this cascade of, I don't know if you've been in organizations where this happens, but like one or two people leave, and then it just sort of creates this shuffle.
Like a little domino.
And then a lot of, yeah. And then a lot of things change. There's a lot of turnover and a lot of changes. And in that, like so many things happened at once, and all of a sudden we were extremely short staffed. And we lost some key players from the processing unit, and got to a point where we were like, hey, I'm so sorry, everyone. Like, we have to shut it down. Like, we don't have enough people to safely operate this anymore. And that was hard for people to hear. That was like, our executive director who's here now, Paul, at the time he had just started as our interim director, and he had to call like this big list of people. One of the first things he had to do was call this giant list of poultry customers and say, sorry, but you're going to have to figure something else out, because like we can't do this. And it was like, we pushed ourselves for a long time to process when we probably shouldn't have. And it was a really hard decision because it's such a valuable resource. Like, everybody knows processing in this area is one of the scarcest resources that we have. So to like make that decision to close it down. And at the time we thought we were just closing it down for the season. But ultimately, we ended up getting out of poultry ourselves, and then did a big financial analysis on the unit and realized that, like, especially if we weren't processing our own poultry, it really didn't make sense for us to run that unit anymore. So we've been quietly trying. For a little while, we talked about trying to maybe figure out some way for other people to come process their poultry there. But the liability around that is just so massive.
Right.
We couldn't figure that out. So now we've been sort of quietly seeing if there's another home for that unit somewhere. But because it is a really valuable resource for the community. It's so hard.
Well, and this whole conversation, as we kind of got into it for ourselves first, everything that we did here was for ourselves initially. And then if it worked, then we'd open up to some friends and family and things like that. And then if that worked, we'd open up a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And the lack of chicken processing, organizations in our state in Western Washington. I mean, there's less than, I think that I can count them on one hand or less.
Yeah.
If you want to do WSDA or USDA, and it all depends on your path. If you're just trying to sell a chicken to Joe Sixpack, who lives around the corner, there is hoops that you have to jump through, and you have to follow it, right. And even if our regulators, maybe they're understaffed, but at the end of the day, there's just not enough people doing it, and more people are starting to care about it. But on the other side is the public is not all of them are ready to pay the amount of dollars per pound that it requires to be successful processing chickens. Right.
So that's the thing too, that like at a small scale, it costs a lot more. You have to get up to the point where you're processing hundreds of chickens a day for it to pencil out for you to be paying Walmart prices. I mean, you could, even with that, you probably couldn't be paying Walmart prices for chicken. Like the amount of turnover per day that you have to have in poultry processing is so high. And if the investment required to be able to process that much poultry means that you have to be processing 200 chickens per day in order for that facility to pay for itself.
100%.
So then not only do you need the facility, but you need 200 chickens per day year round worth of producers, which like we don't have that much here. So
I remember a good story last year when we were considering turkeys, and we ended up doing it and it went well. But again, back to the consumer, people want this. Well, not everybody does, but there's a segment, especially in the Seattle area, of people that want this farm experience. They want this farm experience poultry, and in particular, turkey. And I was one of those guys years ago. I bought a heritage breed turkey, in quotes, right? And I bought it from Whole Foods, and I reserved it, and I showed up on the Tuesday, and I did all the things. And I couldn't believe how much I was paying for it, because that was certainly not how much my mom paid for it all those years,
it's like
for
$200
Thanksgiving.
Turkey.
Right. Then we decided to get into it. We're like, wow, this needs to be X price to make it worth it. And again, some consumers are okay with that because they want that experience. But what we were told and what we found is they want the heritage breed experience, but they still want the turkey to look and act like what they're used to when grandma served it, all those years on that Thursday in November, right? And it's pretty funny.
Heritage stamp on a butterball turkey.
Exactly. Because they still want their leftovers, a day or two afterwards, right? And so if you're not getting that big, breast of a turkey experience, then it doesn't matter, and they're not into it any longer. And so the advice that we got was just grow them all responsibly and with the right food and all those things. And there's a couple of breeds out there that will give them that experience of having the farm raised turkey, but they're still going to get the experience that they're expecting, which is a whole pile of turkey sandwiches over the next few days later. Anyway,
we did. I raised lots of different kinds of turkeys here. We raised the bronze broad-breasted.
Yep, that's what we did last year.
White broad-breasted. Yeah, which white broad-breasted is like the butterball. And then the bronze broad-breasted is like the slightly more heritage-looking butterball. Right. And then I also raised heritage turkeys here. We raised blue slate and another breed I can't remember. And, oh man, 1 year with heritage turkeys, and I was like, I'm never doing this again. I will never raise a heritage turkey again in my life. Not only because they grow really slow, and like you say, there are some customers who actually do want that like leaner, sort of more intensely flavored bird, but like most people aren't looking for that.
Right.
And not only do you have this product that people think they want but don't actually want, but they were such a pain to raise. I don't know if you had that experience, but they fly. Those turkeys fly. So you can't just have them in poultry netting. You have to have them in some like enclosed spaceship so that they don't fly away.
The prior owners of our property that we bought, they said they were up in the trees all the time, and so they were getting I don't know if they're getting picked off or whatever, but we ended up doing the white breasted, big breasted whites. And it was great. We actually had a really positive experience. And then this year it's the bronze for exactly how you said it. But again, so are you trying to meet the customer's needs or are you really passionate about, how they're raised and the husbandry of it all and the food and all those things? And it sounds like Carnation Farms, it has a pretty rich history in that, but for economic sense, you guys are out of the poultry business.
Yes. So, so we're out of the poultry business. The beginning of last year, I had kind of already been like close to being ready to graduate from poultry into something a little bit more mammalian. And the farm sent 3 of us. It was myself and one of the crew on my livestock, and then Eric, the director of agriculture. They sent all 3 of us to a 1-week crash course in farm financial management, basically, I think is kind of how I would sum it up. The course called Ranching for Profit. And it was very livestock focused. And Eric has a background in crops, but retrospectively, this was before he was our director of agriculture. Retrospectively, this was a really good course for him to take because he's Pops Crops. He's all in vegetable production for most of his background.
Crops. Nice.
And so the 3 of us went to Colorado and we took this crash course in farm finance and economics and kind of, it was like business school. It was like business graduate school for farmers. It was really cool. And it was not cheap. But for 7 days, we packed so much information into our heads about understanding the finance of your farm and what you need for your farm to be successful and how to understand where your money actually goes and how to understand how to make a good financial bet and how to analyze your programs and see if they're actually healthy or they just look healthy because you're sort of allocating this really important thing that goes to that enterprise to some other thing. You're just we'll just put that over there and we'll put all of our salaries in this bucket over here and let's just look at cogs on this enterprise. And it was really eye-opening. So we came home from that. That was in January. We came home from that and we looked at all of our livestock enterprises. We looked at laying hens, broilers, and I had poultry I had sheep. And then we also had cattle. So we have the Belted Kingshire cattle, which I'm sure we'll want to talk about. But we went and we ran each of those enterprises through this sort of economic feasibility process. And the poultry, it's massive thumbs down. We were losing money hand over fist in poultry. And we were losing money a little bit on our other programs. But the poultry, we were just super in the hole. And one of the things, this was sort of one of the reasons why I was feeling I don't know if I really want to do poultry anymore is if anyone ever comes to Carnation Farms, you've been here. Mm-hmm. It's grass as far as the eye can see. There's so much grass here. We have these big, huge fields and we have so much pasture. And I look out at those fields, and especially when we had poultry there, and I look at the truck driving out to go take care of all the animals, and it's loaded with grain, with feed for the chickens. And I'd look around at this grass and be why are we not raising something that eats grass? Why am I spending all this money, to bring grains in that were grown as close to here as I can? But this is not grain growing land. This is grass growing land. And so the more I thought about it, the more I was I just don't see how it makes sense to bring in all this feed when the resource that I have is grass and there's animals that eat grass. There's animals that turn that cellulose into protein. And why don't we focus on that? We do this really well. So I had already been having that feeling, and then we went to Ranching for Profit and we ran it through, and then my feelings were made very real on paper. So that was pretty validating.
And so it became an easier decision to say no, and we'll shift into, because there's a rich history obviously, with Carnation Farms and cattle in particular, right? Maybe speak to that, a little history for those listeners that know little. You don't have to go into the deep dive, but Carnation Farms and cattle go hand in hand, and then transition us into this exciting, because about a month ago, my wife and one of my sons and I went on a tour of the farm with Eric, and we met some of these cattle. And so maybe take us from the dairy history into what's going on now up on that hill.
Yeah. So Carnation Farm is when you go to the grocery store and you go to the baking aisle and you look at where they have condensed milk and evaporated milk, and you look on the shelf and there's that white can with the red carnation on it, and it says Carnation milk. This is that place. This is where that essentially started. This wasn't the very, very beginning, but this was their flagship farm. This is where people came when they brought people out, and this was where they had all of their award-winning cows. So in the early 1900s, this place really became known for these amazing cows that produced just this like amazing amount, like volume of milk. And it started with the milk production. Like it started with like, we have these contented cows that produce all this milk and it's amazing. And very quickly, I think the E.A. Stewart, who started this farm, started Carnation Dairy, realized that a lot of livestock is genetics, right? And it's breeding and it's selecting for this thing that you want, this outcome that you want. And so it was about the milk, but this place was actually really about the genetics. And there's a whole section of our upland pasture here that is called genetics. It was fully dedicated to AI and like semen collection, and they had laboratory. Like it was an amazing research place for genetics and AI and breeding for these specific qualities.
And to be clear, AI has a different meaning to it, right? So, artificial insemination versus artificial intelligence. But maybe it's both.
Exactly.
No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe it's both. Probably now it's both.
Right.
I'm sure now you could use artificial intelligence to like put a bunch of genetic information in and have it spit out at you like, oh, these are the two pairings that you should use. But yeah, so this place like was really this foundation of milk production, and then also this really amazing like genetics production place. And over the years, there have been not just the dairy cows here, they also raise beef cattle, they raise Herefords back in the day. And it was a pillar of like genetic excellence. And it was also this place that really supported its community. It employed hundreds of people. It employed lots of different types of people. They'd harvest a cow a week to feed their entire crew. Like they really like were focused on the people around here and like building industry and creating opportunities for people in this area. So I think there's like that aspect of it as well. So the cows that they predominantly raised were Holsteins, these dairy producing cows. And as I mentioned, they also raised Herefords for beef. And
before we jump off that part, I was talking to somebody recently, and they said in the United States today, it's 80-20 roughly, really 79-19 of Holstein versus Jersey on the dairy producing cattle. Then the miscellaneous 2% are, you know, some breeds that have been around or not been around, or maybe they're homesteading types or whatever. Is there a reason why Holstein in particular was the chosen? Do you know that part of the history?
I'm not as familiar with that. I know that different breeds yield different volumes of butter fat. And so I think that Jerseys have like a higher butter fat, if I'm not mistaken, and Holsteins have lower, but maybe they have more volume.
I think you might be right. I think Jerseys, at least in the U.S., because of the butter fat, a lot more of that cream or whatever is for cheese making to that point. and butter making probably. So maybe the liquid milk and all those types of products, Holstein. Yeah, that makes sense. Because that big statue that's out there on the main campus at Carnation Farms is of a big old giant Holstein, right? It's a it's a statue of an actual cow that was on that farm. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm. Possum Sweetheart. She was a world record breaking. If you go and see the statue and read it, it'll tell you exactly how many gallons of milk in that year she produced. But she broke all sorts of world records. And she was just this amazing cow who had this one man who was her milker. I think he only milked like 20 cows on the whole farm, and they were his like set, and he milked them 4 times a day, and he managed all of their nutrition, and he spent 20 hours a day with them. And he it was like the cows, but it was also him that really made that possible. So she was a world renowned cow, and there's pictures of her and magazines and all.
And I'd heard that there's genetics out there in the world, even back, in Europe and other places, where people literally came to somehow, for lack of a better phrase, get a piece of her, get something that they can start putting into their, their group that they were putting together, all over the country and the world. Yeah.
Well, and Carnation not only did a lot of artificial insemination, they also did like embryo transplant. So there's an amazing photo here. I think it's somewhere on the farm. But it's this photo, and it has like one mature cow in the middle, and then like cascading down from her is there's probably 20 cows in a line.
Like a family tree.
And the one cow in the middle is the genetic parent of all of the 19 other cows that were all born that year.
Wow.
So they did embryo, they harvested eggs from her and did embryo transplant and transplanted her fertilized eggs into other cows. And so she had these like 20 genetic children all in 1 year, 1 calendar year. So it's just like amazing. So she was like highly sought after.
This bovine laboratory outside of Seattle for all these years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, transition us then into this really unique looking and beautiful, frankly, breed of cattle that I just did not know existed. I mean, we raise Angus here on our farm. We have one that's got a quarter Holstein. She's been a good mama, but we've got. Tell me about them. They're I don't even want to get the name wrong, but this is a really cool project that people need to hear about.
Yeah, they're called the Belted Kingshire, and they are a composite breed. They're a registered breed, so they are a real breed, but they're brand spanking new. They're probably 20 years old, and they were developed by a man whose name escapes me now. I can send it to you later.
But he's from here?
He's from here. He's passed away now.
Okay.
But he is from Washington, and his farm was in Washington. And he developed lots of breeds of mini cattle specifically. And so technically these cows are a mini cow. But there's really, they're not an Angus.
Can you jump in on the mini cow? Like, what does that mean exactly? Because, my perspective is Angus are the big boys, and, they grow quickly and they grow large, and they, their finish weight are some of the highest in the amount of time, certainly, that really you need them to finish out on if you're raising beef. And then you have some of these smaller breeds. You have even an Aberdeen Angus, which is, anyway, you can go into what makes it a mini breed.
Yeah. So I feel like when I say mini cow, people like imagine these like little tiny, like dog sized cows that are like on Instagram or whatever. I don't mean that. So I've started calling them a mid-sized cow, and they have a smaller body size than an Angus for sure. But I've also started calling them the corgi of cow, because they're really like a pretty big body size on short legs.
Got it.
So they are this kind of funny, they're very round cow on short little legs. But yeah, I'd say they're a mid-sized cow. They certainly dress out much smaller than an Angus.
Would you compare them to a Dexter or a Hereford as far as size goes?
They're bigger than a Dexter, probably smaller than a full-grown Hereford, but closer to like Hereford. So the breeds that make up this breed is lowline Hereford, lowline Angus, and Dexter, which are all small breeds. They're considered small breeds. The lowline Dexter the lowline Angus and Hereford are mini Angus and mini Hereford. But again, these aren't like, it's not like an Australian Shepherd size cow. It's like a full size, it's like a big cow.
Right.
And then the other two that make up the composite breed is Scottish Highland and Belted Galloway. And so those two are full size breeds.
I see. So, for the listeners, let me throw a couple of numbers and tell me if this is right. So, our experience has been in 20 to 24 months of life, an Angus, we can come out with probably an 800 to 1,000 pound hanging weight of an animal. So it means the alive weight is going to be somewhere between 12 and 1,400 pounds, roughly, in 2 years, which is a lot of meat for a freezer for a family. Yeah. To put it in to comparison, a Hereford in the same amount of time would have probably about 25% less, would you say, when it comes to weight?
That's probably accurate. Yeah.
And even if they grew another year, they're still probably everything else being equal, they're just not big enough frame to take on the kind of weight that an Angus would. Is that right?
Yeah. I would say that's true.
But at the end of the day, Dexter, Hereford, Angus are the three most popular beef cattle in our country. And frankly, if we're being honest, the Angus probably did a better marketing job.
Right? Way better. Well, and the Dexters are really like a dual purpose. Like I think a lot of people use those as a dual purpose, and they're a small cow. And I would say that Dexters are smaller than the Belted Kingshires. Like the Belted Kingshires have a larger frame and like fill out much more than the Dexters.
Got it. So, and did you say there's Angus in the Belted the Kingshire?
Mini Angus, but yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Before I jump off that, for clarity, and I'm sorry if I sound pesty, I'm not trying to be.
No.
But the low line, so most people, probably don't know what that means, but that essentially means that the legs are not as long. Is that essentially true?
I think.
Or is there more to it? Okay.
I honestly don't know. That's one of those things that the previous owner was like, these are the breeds. And so that I've just always repeated that. And they've always said, oh, it's just mini Hereford. It's just mini Angus.
I see.
But I mean, that does make sense that they have literally a lower line, that their legs are shorter.
I'm pretty sure that's true, because when I've looked at them, not at your place, but at, just in life or whatever, compared to our Angus, I mean, they just, the full Angus just seems taller, right? They're certainly, they have the frame. They both have the frame and the shoulders and that sort of thing. But, just like in human genetics, right? Sometimes there's short people and sometimes there's taller people. The taller people tend to have bigger frames that they can take on, more weight and all that kind of thing. But okay, got it. So there's two short line or low line breeds as a part of this Kingshire. The full, I don't know what the right word is, but not high line, but the full breed of the Belted Galloway, which are those Oreo looking cows, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you said a full Scottish Highlander.
Yeah.
Which are beautiful. Yep. Those are awesome.
They are beautiful. Yeah, they're very cool. We, the Belted Kingshire is polled, so no horns, which is the thing that I think I probably wouldn't like about raising Scottish Highlanders. I think the horns are beautiful, but from a management perspective, I don't want to have to feed anything with horns. Right. Not anything other than grass.
Yeah, especially, dairy cows, right? They've pulled those, historically. But, we have some friends that have just their own one dairy cow, and then they every year they breed it and with AI. And usually the youngster is, the horns are coming through. So they either have to do it or they, they have to be careful because, milking a cow with horns has its, a few extra problems or potentially challenges. But I'm part Scottish. The Scottish Highlander are a cool breed. I assume that the vision of the Kingshire was something that was related to the climate that we have here. Is that true?
Yes. So the vision of the Kingshire was a cow that would grass finish in 24 months in the Pacific Northwest. And this cow was like very much designed for the Pacific Northwest. Part of the reason for its small frame and its like success in this climate is that you raise big cows here, and I'm sure that you have experienced that if you turn big cows out in a wet pasture, they can make a mess of it pretty quickly. No, you don't have that problem?
Don't get me started on that. No, that's a pain point that we could spend a whole nother podcast talking about exactly that.
Yeah. So, and the thing about Washington, Western Washington, is that it rains 8 months of the year here. And we have really wet pastures a lot. So these smaller frame cows, like, yes, of course, they're still a cow. And if you turn them out and leave them in a wet pasture for too long, they will make a big mess of it. But because they're smaller frames and they weigh less, it takes them longer to make a mess of the pasture than a larger frame, heavier cow does. And so we've had really great success in the last couple of years turning them out earlier. I used to take care of some big Angus cows here for a farmer up in Skagit. And they had 60 mama cows here, and they would come bring bulls in every year. And then we would calve the cows out, and then they'd take the cows at the end of the year. And man, I tell you, I could not put those Angus out the way that I put the Kingshires out. The Kingshires I can put out way earlier, and they actually have a really positive impact because they don't like compact things or like make big mud puddles in the same way. So I found that I have a lot more flexibility because it's a smaller framed animal. And then I find that they're very resilient to both heat and cold. In the wintertime, they get these like kind of shaggy coats on. They're not like long haired like the Scottish Highland, but they definitely put on like a nice winter coat that keeps them warm. And then in the summertime, they're not black. And so they don't suck heat in like some of the other animals do. That
always cracks me up about Angus. There's so many of them in places like Texas, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hot, and they're so, just the deepest black. If anybody, has driven on a highway across I-90, through Idaho, Montana, anywhere like that, I mean, an Angus. I mean, it is deep, rich black. Reminds me of a black Labrador, dog, and, just a really beautiful coat. And it just is the right all the time. But to your point, for the weather, probably doesn't adjust quite as well, or at least apparently by the Kingshire vision is to flourish really in our area where we have our sort of unique climate situation.
Yeah. And for the 10 years before I got the cows, we got the cows in 2021. And for the decade before that, they'd been stewarded completely and raised. Like most of the Kingshires in the world come from this farm, this couple, Jim and Katie Hack, who bought the original maybe 8 or so from this breeder, and then have been like stewarding the breed ever since. So they've been fully conditioned specifically to the Snoqualmie Valley. Jim and Katie were up in Duval on the valley floor, and so they did an amazing job of selecting animals specifically that thrive in like literally the environment that I'm already in. So it was just when they called me up in 2021 and they were like, hey, don't tell anybody, but we're thinking of retiring and we need someone to take care of our cows. And I was like, okay, well, I wasn't really planning on doing that this year, but like, I can't pass this opportunity up. This is an amazing set of animals who are like perfectly suited to this space. So,
well, it sounds like the coolest story that's not yet fully told around here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For sure.
When I saw them, I mean, it has the belt, like the belted Galway. It's the reddish, hair. Is it hair or fur? I guess it's hair, right? On a cow.
Yeah,
we'll call it hair. But it's got the Dexter, Hereford, even Highlander red. So it could have come from any of those. But then I saw that distinct, V-shaped forehead that I see in our Angus with the little, little curly there patch. Yeah, a little tuft. Yeah. And so it's like, wow, you literally can see all of what the makeup is, in that beautiful cow. And there's nothing like it. I haven't seen anything on any highway, on any farm like it. And I'll come to find out, we know the reason why. But I do want, before we jump into the sheep, I just wrap a ribbon around this part. You had mentioned 24 months on grass kind of, we'll say it's ready to go, for for someone's freezer or whatever. What kind of weights are we looking at? If we are using the 800-pound whole from an Angus comparison at 20 to 24 months, depending on what program they're on, where would this one be at?
These guys are my ideal dress weight, and like kind of what I'm shooting for is 500 pounds. Okay. So it's definitely smaller than an Angus. And, you can market that as a bonus. Like you can market that as a good thing, because the way I market it is like, hey, this is going to fit in your freezer. You don't have to pay as much. A quarter of a cow, you can knock that out in 3 months, 6 months, depends on your family size,
pounds,
right? Like
easy math. Yeah.
Right. And so like, I in some ways I am sort of like, hey, this is really accessible. It's like not as much of an investment as you might have to make otherwise. And if you really love it, like get half a cow.
There you go. And what's the marbling like in comparison? Sorry to jump in on that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So we have like pretty darn good marbling on our grass-fed cattle. And the last time our butcher was out, I sort of asked him, and he's like a pretty no-nonsense guy, and he just like comes in and does his job, and he like shoots the shit with me, but he doesn't pull punches, and he's very honest. And I was like, can you tell me honestly, like, how does this animal look? You are the expert. You see animals every day. Yeah. And he was like, I think it looks great. I think that if you wanted to, you could cross a larger breed in if you want a larger carcass size. But you've got good marbling. It's the end of the summer. You've got nice marbling in here, especially for a grass-fed cow. This is pretty much as good as you're going to get. And you've got like a nice fat cover. Some of our heifers have a little bit larger of a fat cap than you might like by the end of the summer. But on the whole, like I'm really pleased with them. And we've talked about crossing, just for genetic diversity, even we've talked about back crossing with, probably Galloway was like the most, the one that we would like most highly prioritize, because, we wanted a back cross to one of the larger breeds that was genetically distinct from the ones that we have, so that we can not get ourselves in a pickle with inbreeding.
yeah, sure. Right. I got it. Yeah. So like high choice, did your butcher comment on that he
didn't give me any of that. Yeah. No, he's a custom exempt kind of all the way. So he didn't give me any like grading.
No, and it doesn't matter.
But he basically was like, it's a really nice cow. You're doing a good job.
No, I love that.
Yeah, and they're delicious.
And I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I'm just, because we're a grass-fed, grass-finished program here at our farm. And, it really comes down to genetics because of, the way the grass works, without sending them to the feedlots in Eastern Washington or some other program. Ultimately the genetics either have to go a little bit longer, or have, like I said, really good program from the beginning. But, well, that's exciting. So the Kingshire, what's the full name of this new breed?
Belted Kingshire.
Belted Kingshire. So, and we're going to put at the end of the podcast and in the notes where people can, find more information about it if they want to buy one, or even if they're not for sale, however you guys want to go about that. But what else were you going to say before
what was I going to say? I don't know, but we sell by the quarter or half. So like we sell shares in our animals. WSDA custom exempt. Butcher comes to the farm, harvests it on site, and then takes it back to his shop. So I'll give you links for our website where you can reserve a share if you want. And then we also sell our lamb shares the same way. And then this year is the first year that we've been able to access USDA processing. So I actually brought cows to a USDA processing plant, and they were harvested there.
So you can sell the retail cuts out of the farm stand.
Exactly. So we will have, I literally just got back to the farm today, cuts that I can sell in the farm stand.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those will probably be on the shelf within the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I love that. Well, then shifting gears, you mentioned the sheep, and we've touched on it, just for a second, but there's also, from what I understand on this tour that we took with Eric, there's a unique breed of sheep with a similar vision, something that would do well and flourish here in our climate, in King County in particular, Western Washington. Tell us about that program, a little bit of the history, and it sounds like it's playing a big role there on the farm.
Yes. So we have We have several breeds of sheep on the farm right now. I won't get much into these ones, but I have Katahdin sheep so those are hair sheep that don't grow wool and don't need to be shorn. I have 75 of those that I bought from a local farmer. And then I have a small group of like fine wool. Well, they're not really fine wool. They're medium to fine wool sheep. So they're Romneys and Finn sheep, which was the foundation of our sheep program. Started with them 3 or 4 years back.
For the fiber artist out there.
For the fiber artist in me and the fiber artist out there. So we produce wool from those guys. And then, so the breed that you're talking about and the most recent addition to the farm, well, sort of to our program specifically, is affectionately called the Avondale for Avondale Road in Redmond. And these sheep were created by Jeff Rogers, who recently and very suddenly passed away. He's an amazing shepherd, and he had been raising sheep in the valley, in Snoqualmie Valley, for 10 years, 15 years. And before that was in Idaho as well. He was just an amazing man, amazing shepherd, amazing farmer, amazing grass grower. He was so knowledgeable, and he had created this breed to kind of do the same thing that the Kingshires do in sheep form. So his goal was always 100% grass-fed organic lamb in 6 months, I think. I think 6 to 8 was his like sort of window that he wanted to harvest in. And he was certified organic. He was one of the first, or maybe the first certified organic sheep farmer, like commercial scale, well, medium scale sheep farmer on the West Coast. So that, and he was super committed to organic and to grass fed, which is just, it's amazing. It's hard to do. And he did it really well. And so the sheep breed he created is sort of based on a English mule, which is like specifically crossing to like English sheep breeds to get this lamb that has the hybrid vigor called. When you cross 2 different breeds, that first cross tends to have, like, they grow really well and they're strong and they get big really fast, and they have this thing called hybrid vigor. It's like seen in a lot of different breeding programs, and it's one of the big reasons for composite breeds, that you like get all of these qualities from the different breeds. So the 2 main breeds that he used were BFL and Clune Forest. So those are 2 like distinctly English breeds. And then I know that farther back in the line and like a smaller percentage, there's Suffolk and Texel, which are the little pig-faced, really big.
And again, all
English.
UK, right? All English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about England and Ireland, right, is that they have a climate almost identical to what we deal with here. It's cold, it's wet, it's gray, there's lots of grass, it's emerald green, it's beautiful. So it makes sense that sheep that have been raised there for hundreds of years would thrive in an environment like this. So the BFL, the Clune Forest, Suffolk, and Texel, but mostly the first 2. And he'd been, raising these sheep here. He farmed on a farm up in Duval for many years. I don't know when he started there, but he'd been there the whole time I had been here. And then 2 years ago, some things were shifting in Carnation Farms, and we were like, hey, I think we have like space for you. He was looking for space. The spot that he had in Duval wasn't going to be available to him anymore, and he needed some new land. And we were like, hey, this is a good time for us. We'd sort of had a year before that, or maybe 2 years before that, we kind of talked about it and it fell apart. But this time it worked out, and we had, I don't know, maybe 20 acres total in a couple different spots on the farm. And he came here and started raising sheep, and then very quickly became like an invaluable resource just as an individual to us. You know, he'd be like, we'd be working on some project and totally stuck and no idea what to do. And he'd swing by and be like, oh, you just need this one thing. It's already in my truck. Here you go. Nice. Yeah, just an amazing man. Like, well, and really
Carnation Farms did not have the sheep history like the cattle, correct?
No, yeah, correct.
So this is new.
I don't know that
ish.
Yeah, I don't know that there had ever been sheep here before.
Which, back to your earlier point, you have all the beautiful grass and all those pastures, and then up above, right? There's also pastures up there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd think, and back to your other point about England, Ireland, Scotland, all that, you'd think that those breeds would flourish there. And it sounds like with some of the intentional breeding and connection and all that kind of stuff, this Avondale sheep could be the one that really makes it work really well here.
Yeah, we're really excited. So we bought 30 of his ewes. And so those, we just actually separated them out this morning from the big flock. So they're going to kind of connect. We're going to get all the animals all together, and then I'm going to have this great big mob of sheep that I can move around. I'm really excited. And yeah,
on that note, real quick,
flourish here.
Do you use dogs? How are you moving? Are you the shepherdess? Do you have a staff? I mean, the pole versus the people?
Yeah, we have people and some poles. I'm in the process of finding my own herding dog right now.
Oh, nice.
I have someone that I connected with whose mom buys beef from us, actually, and she's been in the herding dog training world for long time. And so I reached out to her and I was like, hey, it's time. I have all these sheep now. It's time for me to get a dog. But I don't just want any dog. It needs to have all these qualities and can work with other people and can work with me. And so we're waiting for the perfect dog. I think we're probably going to find someone who's washed out of trials, herding trials. Cause I don't need a dog that can compete. I just need a dog that can work. And so, because I've never had my own herding dog before, so I don't want to have to train one from the beginning, because I need to train myself and then I can train a dog.
Sure. Well, and this particular breed of sheep, is that what they're used to? Are they expecting, sort of intrinsically a dog or a person, or what that whole dynamic always I hear with cattle, it can be unique too.
Yeah. So all of our animals that we've had up until 2025, end of 2024. This herding dog lady that I connected with, she calls it Bo peeping, that they follow you around. All of our animals were Bo peep animals. We open the gate and they follow us. We shake a grain bucket and they follow us. They all run after us. But with herding dogs, of course, it's the opposite. You want them to move away from you. And so Jeff's sheep, the Avondales, and the new Katahdins we bought as well are all used to working with herding dogs. But having worked with them a little bit, I can see that, I think it's a combination with the Avondales, especially, that most animals want to go where the good food is. And they know that if they run past you, that's okay. They're getting to where the good food is. And most of what we do is just open the fence to the next thing and they run in. So I'm trying to get a sheepdog. Jeff's wife is still here tending to the flock, and she has 2 dogs that have come stay with me on vacation. And I've worked with them a little bit. And then I have this friend that I've made. So I have a few resources of people with herding dogs that can come help us on big days until I get my dog. But dogs are definitely part of our future and part of having this many sheep. We're not going to be able to do it without dogs. And then we also just got our first livestock guardian dog. So it's a big year for dogs on the farm.
There you go. Yeah, no kidding. You had mentioned this class that you guys had taken a few months back in Colorado. I assume that one of the takeaways of this ranching class was that these sheep were going to be a good fit for your farm, both for the farm itself, clearly, and the breed and all those types of things, but even economically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you run the numbers, sheep are great. They... in terms of life cycle, you get a product out of them every single year. They have multiple births. So a lot of times you get 2, even 3 lambs out of 1 ewe. And their feed conversion ratio is actually quite good when you do what you put into what you get out. They're easier to handle. They're a smaller animal. Some of them have wool as a byproduct, which, depending on the wool, it's not going to make you thousands of dollars, but you can make money off of it doing various things with it. And so, yeah, economically, they're very viable livestock to have on the farm.
You said it in 6 to 8 months, you could have, lamb for the freezer. You can have your Christmas ham or your Easter ham or Passover ham or any of those things. Excuse me. Keep saying ham. I meant lamb. Whoops. So they grow efficiently and you can eat really, really well in a short amount of time. That's basically what you're saying here.
Yeah. And again, like I've got all this grass. I've got so much grass and that's what they eat.
I love that.
So it's,
And so you're going to keep some and then sell some as shares, locker meat style, like you're doing with the cattle. Then there's always dinners, it seems like, there at the farm that feature lamb. I assume that's part of it.
Yes. So again, with our access finally to USDA processing, I have 2 plants now within 2 hours of me that I can take animals to, which is like transformative for us to be able to have our own meat at our dinners and stuff. Because in order to sell these meals that we've made with food to people, it has to be USDA processed.
Right.
So now that we have that, we're really excited to be able to like highlight our proteins at dinners. And even like we sell lots of prepared food in the farm stand. So having like takeaway dinners and things with our lamb and our beef in them is really exciting. And then down the road as we grow, we're even trying to like build up some partnerships with local grocery stores that like maybe we could sell frozen bricks of lamb or Belted Kingshire beef or whatever in the freezer section. So
cross your fingers for sure.
Down the road.
Well, that kind of brings me to what is the future? And I'm going to ask it with this part in mind. It seems like in the United States, we don't consume lamb quite to the level as a lot of other cultures. I don't really fully understand why, considering all the immigration, our whole country, right? All the things. I don't understand why. Do you have an opinion on that? And then what is the future of lamb? Carnation Farms in particular with your entire livestock program, because obviously there's that rich history that we touched on, but it's shifted a little bit with a few stops along the way. Where are you guys going from here?
Yeah, where we're going, we're really investing in sheep. And the sheep thing is interesting. People like, I'm Greek, so I grew up eating lamb pretty regularly. And it is this like treat for me. Like it's so special and I love it and I enjoy it so much. But there's definitely some education to be done. I think a lot of people think they don't like lamb. And I think a lot of people have had very specific breeds of lamb. And, much like with different breeds of cattle and with like grass-fed versus grain finished, it's like, It all tastes different. And it was amazing. We got some of our USDA lamb back late last summer, sort of early fall. And we did a little like Instagram video of me like grilling some lamb chops. And Eric and I like bit into them. And I was like, oh my God, it's so good. It's so mild and it's so just like delicious and unctuous and fatty and not fatty. It's just like so good.
Oh, in the best possible way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I don't need to go into like how great lamb is, but kind of I do. Because I think a lot of it is just like education and experience, right? Like it's not necessarily going to be the thing that people go for. So you have to find some other way to like get it in front of them, whether that's like samples at the farm stand or, at some of our farm events or whatever it is. I think a lot of it is education because this country, it's really like a beef and chicken country. And those have been like the primary proteins and pork. And those have really been the primary proteins on the plate and not as much lamb. But we've always been a place with a lot of people from different cultures. And I know like regionally, there's a lot of communities that really want lamb.
Oh, yeah.
But again, there's a processing barrier, right? Because a lot of those communities need halal processing. And halal processing is not super common. And there's several people trying to work to get halal processing up and running. So that might be in the future for us. But I would really like to have access to those communities that want this product because it's a product I'm really proud of. And so, so we're growing the lamb program for sure. We are going to be growing the beef program as well. The interesting thing about one interesting thing about the beef program is we kind of realized last year that without the poultry, we were able to focus on lamb and beef and give them more attention, which improved those programs greatly. Just to be able to focus on less, we were able to do less much better. And one of the things that we realized there was that focusing on like breeding and genetics and lambing and calving, doing that like full life cycle for both species, it's actually really hard to do both of them really well. There's only 3 of us who work here. Mm. And because it's a nonprofit, we work 40-hour weeks. Like we try really hard not to go into overtime because most companies don't want to pay you huge amounts of overtime. Right. So we really have to cram everything that we can into this like 40-hour week. And so I found this veterinarian who met the cows and was just like smitten with them. And she asked me, how much would you charge for one of these cows? And I was like, do you want the whole breeding herd? And we're working on relocating the cows specifically, to her place, and then working on finishing the cows, the 1 and 2 year olds here on the farm. So we'll get the weaned calves from her every year and finish them here. And then she, the veterinarian with years of experience in nutrition and breeding and genetics and everything, can work on like really taking this breed to the next level, which is something that like I have people on my crew who have a strong background in that, but none of us are really able to dedicate the amount of like time and energy and resource that we can to it. So I had this just amazing opportunity to connect with this woman, and so she's really going to take the cattle to the next level, and then we'll continue finishing them here, which I think means like growth in numbers as well, because she's got some space to fill. So
that's awesome.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, it's great. Again, Carnation Farms, rich history and cattle in particular, certainly a big part of the greater Seattle area, the culture, the tradition, all those things. I mean, that evaporated milk, whenever I saw that can, I knew that we must be in the fall and my mom might be making, pumpkin pie or something else. So there's always those triggers and connections too. And then fast forward with bright people like you and Eric and others, the team that they've assembled is going to take it deep into the 21st century. I think it's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of years here.
Yeah. Well, Alex, where can people find out more information about what you guys are doing? Livestock in particular, certainly the farm in general. Anything you want to speak to?
Yeah. So we have our website. It's currently going to be updated very soon. It's a little bit hard to navigate right now. But there is tons of information about the farm and the livestock on our website. It is www.carnationfarms.org. And so if you go to the farm food tab, you'll find tabs where you can buy our meat shares, learn more about our livestock. And then on the website, there's also an events page, and we have tons of events scheduled for this year. A few of them are meet and greets, where we're opening the farm up. The livestock crew will be here on a Saturday, and folks can come out and meet the animals and meet the farmers and see the farm and learn about how great it is to buy local grass-fed meat. And then there's other fun events that the livestock crew is always here and working, and we try and have the animals like nearby or integrated somehow. And then the livestock crew and I are also teaching a rotational grazing series this year. Nice. So on March 31st, I believe, there's a free Zoom session, which is going to be a sort of introduction to the grazing principles that we use here. And then there's going to be, it's a series, so there will be 3 courses throughout the season. So as the seasons change, you'll sort of get to see how practices change and are adapted. And at each session throughout the year, we'll cover different topics and go through some like practical skills like body condition scoring and evaluating pasture and showing you some tools that you can use and get comfortable with. And then also introducing people to a couple different types of fencing. So that's going to be a really fun thing we're doing this year. So
types of fencing. I love that because fencing is a big part of raising any livestock for sure. Well, that's been awesome, definitely. Alex. I appreciate you taking some time with us on the Farm Table podcast. Great fit for what we are doing and what we're trying. And we're really excited about the continued connection, relationship, networking with what you guys are doing there in our little farm and what we're trying to do. I think we are customers of the Avondale sheep ourselves. We will be bringing in some to our farm this year. So we are really excited about it, actually. In fact, without trying to sound dramatic, if it wasn't for that visit and learning about that particular breed and the efforting that has gone into it, we might not have said yes at all to any sheep. We were on the fence with it, and it genuinely pushed us over because of the uniqueness and the excitement. And frankly, our family, we really love lamb. I mean, we're not one of those that have a hard time with it. And with all of our beef and pork available, we love pulling out the lamb in rotation as well. So we expect to be, partying, alongside you guys when it comes to this really cool program.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so wonderful. And it's funny, if there's one thing that I proselytize about, it's sheep. I can't tell you how many people have come here being like, I'm a goat person. And when they leave, they're sheep people. I think that sheep are just the most amazing creature in the whole world. I love them so much. They're so much fun to raise. They're great for the land. They're great for your heart. They smear lanolin all over your face. They're just great. So I'm so excited that you're getting into the sheep world. I've converted a few people, and it makes me so happy every time I hear that.
The deal I made with my wife, as long as we didn't have to give up the pigs, I needed, because I still like our little old spots because they're fun too.
Yeah.
It's a good trade. Anyway, well, you have a good one, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You too.
See ya.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Irish Mike's Farm Table Podcast. Thank you for supporting me, and don't forget to subscribe and rate on your favorite platform. I would love it if you gave me a 5-star rating. If you like what you hear, also feel free to share with a friend. Make sure you head over to lakeshorefarmstead.com to find out more information about all the things we are doing around our farm. You can also find the show notes to this and each episode on the podcast tab on the website. Thank you for sharing in the conversation around the farm table.